What's going on, guys? It's Team Labyrinth here with some Shimmering Skies Day 1 deck lists. Shimmering Skies has just come out, and all of us on Team Labyrinth are super excited to see how the set impacts the metagame. There are a lot of new and powerful cards in the set that can slot nicely into existing archetypes, as well as potentially introduce new ones. Here are a few deck ideas we've come up with so far for the new set.
What's up, everyone? It's your favorite Bald Illuminator RMB, aka Mr. Bald. Today, I'm super excited to share with you all my Day 1 deck list. Emerald Steel Mill. I try at the start of every set release to check and see if Mill has become viable, and we may finally have our time to shine. With the alternate win condition of milling out our opponent thanks to some fantastic new additions we've gotten in Shimmering Skies. 4 cards I want to highlight, first of which being Mother Gothel, the 2-drop. It is a 2-cost 1/3 that quests for 1, and when you play this character, you can pay an additional 3 ink to return a chosen character to their player's hand. So essentially has a Mother Knows Best attached to it. This also comes with a Floodborn Shift option in the 6-drop Mother Gothel that shifts for 4, it's a 4/6, it quests for 2, and whenever you play this character, each opponent chooses one of their characters and returns that card to their hand. The third card I want to talk about is Hypnotic Deduction. This is a card that I have been waiting for since the game came out. Finally! It's effectively a brainstorm from Magic the Gathering, but Hypnotic Deduction is a 2-cost card that says draw 3 cards. You may then put 2 cards from your hand back on the top of your deck in any order. This is an easy way to take having multiple Whole New Worlds in your hand. Keep one so that you can sing it, and put one back on the top of your deck right before you're about to sing the Whole New World, so you can guarantee that you draw into a second one to keep the chain rolling. And lastly, I want to talk about a new removal tool in You're Welcome!
You're welcome!
I am so excited for this card. This may be the tipping point that actually makes Mill viable. Not only is it a phenomenal removal tool that can remove a character, an item, or a location that's in play, put it back into your opponent's deck, and then force them to draw 2 new cards. You'll notice we're currently running a 68 card list. Now this is intentional, as the goal of the deck is to win by causing our opponent to draw cards from their deck, and when they have none left, causes them to lose the game. The idea is to play a heavy concentration of tempo tools, such as some of the bounce cards like the Mother Gothels. We have the Muses, we Don't Talk About Bruno, we have Mother Knows Best, alongside a very well-balanced Floodborn package to sing a whole new world. Now, back to that removal tool that has that forced draw built right into it, and You're Welcome. Imagine you get to remove a problematic threat on the board, force your opponent to draw 2 cards, and then sing a whole new world, essentially nullifying the negative downside of giving your opponent 2 cards for the sufficient removal. What can you say? Except, you're welcome. We can also loop the same Tremaine over and over again with the Muses triggers to continue to rebuy our whole new world. Now do you see why we're running 68 cards? We are going to try and take advantage of Morph Space Goo. I love Morph. With our Floodborn package in the deck as well. Now this is just my initial first draft of the deck, and I could definitely see it getting some updates and some revisions as the meta pans out. I am, however, incredibly excited to start testing this deck and tuning it at my locals. Give it a try.
Hey guys, Zenulus here to bring you a couple of options for Amethyst Steel going into Shimmering Skies. Amethyst and Steel both got quite a few fun options to shake up our power level.
What does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 9,000! What, 9,000?
Like Pete, Games Referee, Doc, Bold Knight, Mickey Mouse, Food Fight Defender, Amethyst Chromacon, and the Library, A Gift for Bell. These cards allow some flexibility in game plan and overall deck design paired with the tools we already have in place. The first list I want to look at really highlights the aggressive side of things, taking advantage of Doc Bold Knight, Amethyst Chromacon, and the Library A Gift for Bell to keep our hand healthy while staying low and putting on tons of pressure with your early characters like Maleficent, Biding Her Time, and Pinocchio, Star Attraction. Befuddle makes a return in this list to keep those cards safe from challenges, and Pete, Games Referee, fills the role of stopping actions on pivotal removal turns so you can keep turning sideways. The second list I want to highlight is more of a traditional mid-range approach, leaning on the bounce package of Mim Snake and Mim Fox, while also adding in the tools Pete Games Referee and the Library, a gift for Bell, to both disrupt pesky removal and keep our hand healthy with the combo of Chernobog's Followers, Creatures of Evil, and Magic Broom, Illuminary Keeper. These cards, paired with the Library, a gift for Bell, really does something to keep your hand healthy, so you don't always have to rely on bouncing your rabbit and singing friends to dig more for your deck for the answers you're looking for. While we don't quite yet know what the meta will look like, having flexible options in these colors with new tools bolstering the solid core, this color combination is shaping up to have a place in Shimmering Skies, and you should really keep your eye on it going forward.
Hi, I'm your local aggro expert Bjornfot, also known as Bjorn, and I'll be showing off Amber Amethyst Turbo Quest. The new cards that we are excited to play are really just Daisy Duck and Amethyst Chromicon, but those cards are so good that they alone are bringing Amber Amethyst into the spotlight. The core game plan is quite simple. Just quest as fast as possible, use Daisy Duck's 4 willpower to cheat out lore like never before, and Chromicon to draw more cards than we can count. However, what support cards you pick can greatly impact your games. The first version I want to show off is hyper aggressive, capping out at 3 ink, but getting great value from Cinderella and 3 different songs. We simply flood the board with 1-drops and some 2-drops and sing when necessary. We have 12 bodyguards and also a song that can bounce, so our characters should be safe from the opponent's characters, although steal removal might be a problem for us. The second version has the Mim and Merlin bounce package and therefore goes up to 4 ink instead of 3. It's a bit slower, but more stable. We don't have any songs in this list since we don't have time to sing them. We don't want Cinderella because we can't have too many 1-drops. Instead of flooding the board, we quest a bit more carefully and bounce back our own characters to protect them. Besides Daisy and Chromicon, both lists include must-have cards like Piglet, Lilo, Maleficent, and either Befuddle or Poor Unfortunate Souls. Some cards I didn't include but are still worth considering are Queen's Castle, 1-drop Broom, and Rapunzel.
What's going on, guys? It's Lorcana Bro, and the deck I'll be covering is Amber Steel Songs. Shimmering Skies gave Amber Steel several new options for deck building, including Daisy Duck, Pete Games Referee, Prince Naveen Ukulele Player, and Alan Adale Rockin' Rooster. With these cards, there are a couple of different ways you can go with Amber Steel. The first option is a more character-heavy aggro version, adding Daisy Duck Donald's Date alongside Pooh Pirate Captain and Mr. Smee as early game options to generate lore very quickly. Additionally, we have 3 copies of Prince Naveen Ukulele Player to be able to turbo out a whole new world on turn 4. Being able to curve out characters on turns 1 through 3 and play Naveen on 4 into Whole New World, Grab Your Swords, or any of our other songs can create some very explosive opening draws that can really put the opponent on the back foot. And finally, we have 4 copies of Pete Games Referee, which provide additional disruption package against opposing actions such as Be Prepared and Grab Your Swords, which provide our characters some additional protection. The second version of Amber Steel also includes Daisy Duck and Pete, but is a flute-centered version that drops Prince Naveen for Alan Adale. This Rockin' Rooster can provide some early game lore generation and, in addition to Sleepy's flute, gives you additional lore reach in the later stages of the game where you may have lost your characters. While the optimal list will ultimately depend on the way the meta shapes out, these are a couple of directions you can go. While neither of these lists include the Queen package, this is definitely another consideration to come back into the deck, as turn 2 Shift can be a clean answer to challenging Daisy Ducks.
Hey guys, Kindle here, aka No I'm Not. I'll be sharing my day 1 builds for Ruby Amethyst and Shimmering Skies. The cards I'm most excited for, in no particular order, are Madam Mim Elephant, Cogsworth Illuminary Watchman, the Library, A Gift for Belle, Hypnotic Strength, and Elsa, the Fifth Spirit. While we have a lot of new options, space is becoming very limited in Ruby Amethyst, so finding the correct build is going to be quite tricky. This first list I'm calling Ruby Amethyst Hypnotic Strength, and it's built to try and combat the dreaded Amber Amethyst Hyper Aggro deck on day 1 with their inclusion of Daisy Duck. Playing more 1-drops will be highly important, so we've included 9 of them, with 4 Churnabox followers, 4 Rafiki, and 1 Cogsworth to offer some synergies to be able to give any character rush, including himself. Next, there are 4 Hypnotic Strength. This allows us to potentially answer a Daisy with our 1-drops as early as turn 2 by giving our character Challenger 2 and draws a card. Last, for new cards, there are 2 Madam Mim Elephant, which, when paired with Teeth and Ambitions, can be a big headache for any aggro player and gives us access to additional bounce for our Merlin Rabbits and Goats. My second list is Ruby Amethyst Library. This is a more traditional list that's trying to take advantage of the Library, A Gift for Belle. Both Churnabox followers and Magic Broom synergize well with the Library with their banish effects, which will allow you to draw an additional card while at that location. The Library is a great early threat at 3 cost and 8 willpower. Your opponents will be forced to make a tough decision while characters are there to either trade and let you draw a card, or take out the location first, leaving your character safe for an additional turn, all while providing a steady clock of ticking for 1 lore a turn. This list is heavy on Merlin Crab to allow our 1-drops or Flynn Riders to challenge into a Daisy profitably, and I'm also including 1 Mim Elephant to give us access to more bounce options, and her effect of moving 2 damage from her onto another character can be quite useful. Keep in mind, Ruby Amethyst should build itself to be meta dependent, so your list should adjust fast at first to react to the field. Cards that will be worth considering are Elsa, the Fifth Spirit, Gaston, Arrogant Hunter, and the inclusion or exclusion of Teeth and Ambitions.
Hey, Sailor here, and I'm super excited to be jumping into day 1 Shimmering Skies list with all of you. As most of you probably already know, I'm known for making Ruby Sapphire popular at the beginning of Ursula's Return, with my addition of Sisu Empowered Sibling and Ice Block combo. The way I built Ruby Sapphire at the beginning of Ursula's Return was to be the best deck against what I thought was going to be the best card in the next metagame, which I thought was going to be Diablo Devoted Herald. The card ended up being, as predicted, one of the most defining cards we've seen in Lorcana so far. In Shimmering Skies, I think we will again see a very meta-defining card entering the game. And that is... Daisy Duck, Donald's Day. With her 1 cost and 1 strength, 4 willpower, 2 quests, I think aggro as probably the best tool it ever had in Lorcana so far. So we're about to see much more aggro, and the archetype in general will be much better than it ever was. Here's where I am right now with my day 1 list. First, you can see that I've returned to the first chapter Gaston Arrogant Hunter as a 4 strength, 2 willpower character on 2 that can deal with Daisy Duck. I think he's much stronger than he ever was, because he answers probably the most defining card, but also I think he fits the best in a deck that uses the Ice Block, since you can lower the downside of him having only 2 willpower by making so that you do more than 1 trade with it, probably 2 trade, which is a lot for our 2-drop characters. Next, we have one of the 2 most exciting Sapphire cards from Shimmering Sky, which is Shisha, Dedicated Mother. She's a 2-drop, uninkable, 2 strength, 1 willpower with support, and an ability that reads 1 on the way. During your turn, when you put a card into your inkwell, if it's the second card you've put into your inkwell this turn, you may draw a card. Ruby Sapphire historically have been lacking a good 2-cost card outside of the 1 jump ahead. It's also been very reliant on Hiram Flaversham for card draw. I think Shisha will shore up these 2 axes in only 1 card. The reason for this is that she pairs so incredibly well with Fishbone Quill. You would turn 2 Shisha, turn 3 Fishbone Quill, ink twice, and draw a card. If you're playing against aggro, you might just be pleased enough with 1 card draw and trade her out immediately, let's say against a Lilo or a 1-drop Maleficent in Amethyst. Against more control matchups, we're more likely to keep her unexerted and profit from her passive ability every turn. Being able to keep a healthy end while developing a body and still developing our inkwell in the early turns make for a very versatile and sound game plan. But because we won't always have Fishbone to follow up, we need to add more cards that we can play on 3. This is where I'm introducing back some number of 3-cost Sisu Daring Visitor. This is a card I added the deck at the beginning of Ursula's return in order to be banishing Flynn's Charming Rogues. She could then, on the following turn, still challenge a Curse Merfolk, for example. And in later turns, could also represent a shifting Sisu Empowered Sibling. Now that we are anticipating a return of aggro decks, I think it is our time to shine again. She's uninkable though, so we can't really afford to be playing more than 3 copies. Which is the reason why I also added 2 copies of Sisu Emboldened Warrior. Just to make sure that I can put something early on the board that maybe can contest some of the bigger characters. And it makes it so that I have now 5 copies of little Sisus in order to represent a shift line with our Sisu Empowered Sibling. Next, we have 3 copies of Ramatala, Keeper of Ancient Stories, in case we go for turn 2 1 jump ahead and skip the 3-cost cards altogether. She's still an incredibly good early character while not being irrelevant at any stage of the game. I had to take 1 copy out though in order to make place for these added 2 and 3-cost cards. I still like the flexibility of different openers that she provides with 1 jump ahead, alongside what is without contest the best card in our deck, Hiram Flaversham. Then we have our big Ruby characters that help us take back the control of the board, which are 4 copies of Maui and 3 copies of Madame Medusa. In a go-wide metagame, I do think these 2 characters are much worse than in a more mid-range go-tall metagame. But they are such great follow-up to a turn 3 Quill or turn 4 Tala in the case of Maui that I'm willing to be keeping a high number of those cards. Next, we have the only other card that added from Shimmering Skies, which is Cusco Sailfish Emperor. This new character is extremely versatile because it can either be a resource since it's inkable, it can also be an answer to pesky items such as Sleepy's Flute or Lucky Dime, and of course an answer to these problematic locations, which is mainly Queen's Castle or eventually the library from Shimmering Skies. He also has this other ability, by Invite only, that offers some board protection. And since we can generate lots of ink, we can use that multiple times in a single turn. The rest is pretty standard. I went up to 3 copies of Ice Blocks and 4 copies of Sisu Empowered Siblings, because I think this is our best shot at dealing with early board aggression and making the most out of our 3-cost Sisu Daring Visitor. To end my segment about this new Ruby Sapphire, I want to mention some other new cards we could consider moving forward. First, Ruby Chromicon. As a way for Gramatala to challenge Daisy in 1 shot, and Maui to deal with Castle right away. It's also reusable.
Reduce. Reuse.
Whereas Vitalisphere could only be used once outside of the Tamatoa recursions. The other card is Tipo, Growing Sun, which is another way to ramp onto outside of 1 jump ahead while leaving a semi-relevant body on board. If aggro were playing more willpower characters, I'll be more inclined to include him. But it's looking like the real threats are gonna be Daisy Duck and Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain. So I'm not too high on the card right now. The last card I want to talk though is Mufasa, Ruler of Pride Rock. By the way, look at this enchanted. Wow, so pretty. That card certainly fits our game plan, right? And it pairs extremely well with Fishbone Quill in order to ramp to it faster, but also make it so that its delicate balance ability is not too much of a downside, since we'll be able to go from 8 ink, play the Mufasa, get back 2 cards, so down to 6 ink, and back to 8 on the following turn with the Fishbone Quill. The reason I'm not including it right now is that I recognize, again, that Daisy Duck is the meta-defining card, and I don't think we can afford to be putting our 8-cost unnickable card that don't affect the board. He's basically a finisher, which is something we already have in the form of Tamatoa. It's a really powerful card that I'll for sure keep an eye on. But as long as my opponents are playing multiple tool or questers in the first 3 turns, I'm not greedy enough to put my hopes on Mufasa. Maybe once the metagame settles at a slower pace. But until then, we need to be respecting the threat that represent these new aggro builds. Thanks for listening, and I wish everyone an exciting introduction into Shimmering Skies.
That's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the deck list. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, as that really helps the channel. Keep questing, and we'll see you next time.